One of the rules that I have in life that frankly has served me pretty well is if you don't have to be the bad guy, don't be. But unfortunately for today's tough message, I think I have to be the bad guy. And the message is, if you're spending more than $4,000 a month, I want you to stop. And why is that? I say these numbers because the average household income in the United States is $75,000 a year. Let's say that they're paying 20% overall in taxes, so their take-home pay is going to be $60,000, which is $5,000 a month. Now, one of the core principles, if you want to be able to retire at all, let alone early, is no matter how much you earn, you have to spend less than you earn. And then part two to that is it's not enough to save. You also have to invest. So let me give you the realities of this. If your take-home pay is $5,000 a month, I think we all need to be thinking about saving as much as we can. The old adage of save 10% and you're going to be fine, that might have worked 2 generations ago, but in a world where most of us don't have a pension, in a world where most of us, our Social Security is going to be taxed, in that type of world, unfortunately, I do not think saving 10% is enough. I think we need to save 20%. And so 20% of $5,000 is $1,000 a month, which means if you're spending more than $4,000, you need to stop. You need to reevaluate. And regardless of how much money you're making, even if you're making $200,000 or $300,000, the framework that I'm going to share today is going to help you reach your goal sooner and is going to give you a higher likelihood that you'll be able to retire comfortably and maybe even retire early. So let's jump in. I said that, I think we as Americans, whether you're in Canada, Australia, Europe, many other countries, I think saving 20% is foundational, that we really need to be trying to do it. Let me share with you how long it takes to save $1 million. You're going to be shocked by this. If you save $10,000 a year and you get 7% return on that, I'm not saying this is a risk-free 7%. I'm not saying there's a bank account somewhere you can open up and get 7% return. I'm saying if you have a portfolio and you're fortunate, you're netting after fees 7%, which is a healthy return. And this is not a risk-free portfolio. This is not a sleep cozy at night portfolio. This is a portfolio that's going to have some volatility, some significant ups and downs over an investment cycle. So buckle up for the ride. This is not an easy ride, but let's just say you get that 7%. You put $10,000 a year into your portfolio. How long is it going to take you to save $1 million? Any guesses? It's going to take 31 years. That's a long time. If you don't start till you're 30, you're going to be 61 years old before you've saved $1 million. And that's if you quit spending more than $4,000 a year in this example, right? If you're saving 20% or roughly 20%. In this case, you're saving a little bit less than 20%. 20% would be $12,000 a year. My examples have 10,000, but it gives us easy math. Okay, what if you're fortunate and you've saved your first $100,000? So there's a famous quote by a guy by the name of Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's business partner. He just passed away at the age of 99 recently. Really worked almost up till the day that he died. He's one of the fortunate ones that really, or unfortunate, but he really loved his work. And for those folks, there's nothing wrong with if that's what they want to do, if they've been thoughtful and deliberate. But Charlie Munger has a quote that basically says, you need to do whatever you need to do to save that first $100,000. And he says, saving that first $100,000 is key. And then after that, you can ease off the gas a little bit. So let's say you have $100,000 and you're putting $10,000 aside. Any guesses on how long it's going to take you to save $1 million? Still going to take a long time. It's going to be 23 years. So again, let's say that you're 30, 35 years old. At this point, you're 58, somewhere between 50 and 58. So if you want to retire, certainly if you want to retire early, we got to really jump on it. And if you're spending more than $4,000 a month, which is 80% of the $75,000 take-home pay. So if you're spending more than 80% of your take-home pay, you got to stop. And we're going to get back to that 80%, but let me keep going. All right, so Charlie Munger, who I just mentioned earlier, talked about, saving that first $100,000. For me, waiting 23 years to get $1 million is no walk in the park. That's no bargain. That's a quarter of a century. That is a long time. So Charlie did this quote back in 1994. He was talking to a business school class at USC when he said that. And he used a swear word in that quote. I'm not going to repeat his swear word here, but I think that's why it wasn't picked up massively in the press. But anyways, so what's the value of that 100,000 that Charlie was telling those business school students to get out of business school and do what they have to do to save that first 100,000? What is $100,000 in 1994? Based on inflation, what's that worth today? It's about $210,000. So I'm going to modify Charlie's quote. I'm going to say $250,000. You need to do whatever you need to do to save that first $250,000. Charlie said, I don't care if you have to pack your lunch every day and take public transit to work. You need to do what you need to do to save that first $100,000. I think that number's $250,000 now. Because again, inflated since 1994 over the last 30 years, that 100,000 is 210,000. I'm calling it 250,000. So we'll call this Azul's quote. You need to do whatever you need to do to save that first 250,000. And why is that? Because even again, the average household making 75,000, if they're saving $10,000 a year, it's still going to take them over 15 years. It's going to take 16 years to get to $1 million from there. So this is why I think the 20% is key. So how do you get to 20%? Well, there's a strategy I like to talk to my clients about that's called 50-30-20. And basically, so this is of your after-tax take-home pay. So using this family making $75,000, their take-home pay is going to be $60,000. So in this example, I'm using $60,000 as the base. So it's after tax, but before any savings. The 50-30-20 rule says, try to keep your needs, your rent, your food, your utility, your transportation to and from work, the necessities of life, your needs, try to keep that to less than 50% of your take-home pay. So in this case, it's $30,000 a year. Now that's going to be hard because I just looked up what the average apartment rent is in the United States, and it's just under $1,500 a month. So that's $18,000 right there of that $30,000. So now you have $12,000 left over, which is only $1,000 a month for all your other necessities, including your utility bill, fixing your car, all these other things. So life is getting tough. But let me keep going with this. So that's 50%. And then the 30% are your wants. That's going out to eat. That's taking a nice vacation. That's all the cardboard boxes that come from Amazon to our homes. Most of that stuff is wants, not needs. So try to keep that to 30% or less of what your after-tax take-home pay is. And if you can do that, 50% on your wants, 30% on your needs, that'll leave you 20% in order to be able to save. And again, for the average US household, if they do everything right, they're looking at 31, if they do everything right and they get fortunate in the stock market, right? A 7% return is not a slam dunk. And if they don't blow out, if they don't succumb to the human emotions if they don't blow out. If they do everything right, they're looking at a 31-year journey. Now, it's not helpless. Nobody says you need $1 million to retire. I'm just using this as an example. But this is why I talk about if you're spending more than $4,000 a month, or whatever your 80% of your take-home pay is. If you're spending more than 80% of your take-home pay, I really need you to think about that and say, is your future self going to thank you for that? You want to balance current self with future self. And speaking of that, I want you to enjoy the journey as much as you can while being financially responsible, which is really what this video up here is about. 7 things that I want you to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy the journey more until it becomes your time to retire. So I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.